everybody, Jason Ricci here. We're going to do a little lesson on vibrato. Cover a couple of different styles. Okay guys, so today we're going to be working on a C harmonica. I'm using a C Blue Moon Suzuki Manji today with brass comb and cover plates that are covered in gold, right? So anyway, pretty cool. Let's talk about vibrato. Now I've done some lessons in the past, but recently a few of you guys have been writing in the comment section asking about vibrato again. So rather than like sending you to one of my old videos, I do have some new things to say about it since those videos are almost 12 years old. There's some different styles of vibrato, and some of them are like really learnable. Like you can practice them and slowly get better at them and then definitely learn them. And other ones seem to be like you either have it or you don't, right? Like almost like genetic or something. Like an overnight thing happens and you suddenly get this vibrato. So let's just start at the very beginning with the vibratos that I think anybody can learn. The first one would be breath vibrato. So this is the kind of vibrato that, like, when I think of breath vibrato, I immediately think of Big Walter Horton, okay? So this is the kind of vibrato that you can develop on your own today. You can start today, right? It might take a little while before you get it really well. But what you do is you just start, like, let's say a hole 1 on a C harmonica. So you just get the single tone, and then you just start to interrupt that tone slowly. So that's very, very slow. Then you just gradually speed that up. Right, like on a tongue block, if I split and cover 2 and 3 and play 1 and 4. And I can do the same thing on the draw. Or on 2. Now you can kind of hear there's a point there in my playing where it goes from really slow to kind of fast. That's something I could work on myself, is getting it so that it's seamless transition between really slow and really fast. What I just did there is kind of something that I've heard like some saxophone players do. I could certainly work on it more. It's a beautiful effect, which is slowing down the vibrato. You know, if you listen to Ben Webster or even some singers like Billie Holiday, they'll sing a note and va 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 va, right? It's very beautiful. Could be better, right? So anyway, that's that breath vibrato. Now you can kind of cheat on the blow ones and do this little coughing thing. And sometimes you hear some of the players doing this. It's like, hear that? That's my throat cutting it off, going, and you can actually do that on the draw too. If you listen to Butterfield, who I wouldn't classify as really a breath vibrato guy. I would say he's more of a throat vibrato guy. D.W. Gill great Maine harmonica player, described it to me as like a monkey, like a right. So if you can do that naturally, you might be able to get vibrato right away of the sort of throat order. You could try like multitasking actually. Like you could do a scale and try putting vibrato on each scale tone. That way you're practicing a scale and your vibrato at the same time, which would be good. Some guys are so good that they actually match the tempo of the song to their vibrato. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think Lee Oscar does that. Heard P.T. Gazelle do that as well. It's very, very cool when you become that mindful of your vibrato. Maybe those guys are just doing it automatically. So anyway, that's breath vibrato. So it's just interrupting the breath. Breath vibrato. The next type of vibrato I'm going to talk to you about is called throat vibrato. Now, I think that like what I use most of the time is a combination between like a slight throat vibrato and a breath vibrato. Like towards the beginning of my playing, it was entirely breath vibrato. Like even like if you listen to my early records, I think they were mostly all breath vibrato. But like somewhere along the line, I started kind of pulling from like right around here on some of my notes, especially the draw notes. I think the best example of throat vibrato that I've ever heard is undoubtedly Paul Butterfield. And it's a very thick and strong vibrato that actually pulls the pitch down a little bit too. So it's sort of a pitch vibrato. And what I mean by that is rather than just having the same note go va 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 va, it's like wub 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 wub. So the pitch is actually changing with the force of the note or just the pitch, okay? We'll talk more about pitch vibrato when we get into what I would call the jaw vibrato, or like the more Howard Levy, Chris McCulloch, Carlos Del Junco style vibrato that we hear out of some of the jazz harmonica guys today. Back to Butterfield. When I first heard Butterfield's vibrato, I was just absolutely enamored with it. And more than any vibrato ever, I just wanted to sound like that guy. I really can't do it at all, even today, 30 years later, but I can kind of get close. So it's kind of like a... Now, like I was saying earlier, it's sort of a cross between a throat vibrato and a breath vibrato. When you hear Butterfield doing it, you're really hearing that monkey sound, that which I'm not doing that on the draw notes anyway. I do that a little on the blow notes, especially when I'm tongue blocking. Like tongue blocking octaves. For some reason, it's much easier to get them with the monkey sound than it is with just... I can't even do it without it, right? The thing is, I'm sort of glad later in life that I never kind of got the Paul Butterfield vibrato, because as much as I love Like today, I've kind of, I don't necessarily want to hear that all the time, right? And like, so what I would suggest to you too is be conscious of the fact that vibrato is an effect. So it's no different than a pedal, right? You want to be able to step off of that pedal. So you want to be able to play without vibrato. So did you hear that one note? I just put it on there automatically, right? So that's not a conscious choice when that happens. And anytime something happens to me in music that I'm not conscious of, well, that's an area that I need work on. So I try to practice like scales and stuff like that, or songs without vibrato. Now I can always add it later. It's easy. It's a choice. I can put it on. But if I can start a note without it, that's great. So like a lot of times I have to practice without vibrato. And like a lot of times you might notice that some harmonica players just always have vibrato. Everything is right? It's just constant, nonstop vibrato. And as great of a sound as it is, it can be overwhelming. And it can get to the point where all you're hearing in the harmonica player is vibrato. And not really like the note choices or stuff. It's just it's just constant vibrato. Okay, so you want to be mindful of it, and like any technique, you want to be able to control it and own it. It's just like a note choice, right? You don't want to just blow into the hole because it's there, right? You want to be able to choose to play that note or not. All right, which kind of brings me to the next thing, right? So if you get this throat vibrato thing or you get the breath vibrato thing, another great thing to try is something that like, and we touched on this a little earlier, something like my hero Pat Ramsey used to do, which is to play the note and then add the vibrato. Now, before I talked about playing the note, then adding the vibrato, then slowing down the vibrato, which is really, really cool. But if you're not really good enough to slow it down, like I have trouble slowing it down sometimes, you could just play the note and then add the vibrato. That's something you might have heard me do quite a bit. I've been working on it for like 7 years straight, and I still like forget to do it because I'm always immediately going to that immediate vibrato that I learned from listening to old blues recordings. But when you listen to Pat, one of the most beautiful things about Pat Ramsey is this very conscious choice to play. And then, you know, the note starts. And then there's a vibrato at the very end. It's very, very pleasing to the ear. Subconsciously, you probably don't even notice it in some players. You know, and you really don't hear it very often on harmonica. But definitely Pat did it. It's very beautiful. Right, very nice. Just and if you, like I said, if you can slow it down even cooler, just put some Ben Webster on there. That's kind of the first two types of vibrato: breath vibrato or throat vibrato with, like, you know, the Butterfield. You know who's got just a ferocious throat vibrato is Will Wild. I'm sure if you're watching this channel, I'm sure you've encountered Will Wild. It's just it's a rock and roll vibrato. It's just like, it's like really in your face, you know. It really works for like Will's style of playing, you know. It's very ferocious. One of the other types of vibrato that I haven't covered yet, and look, guys, I'm going to do my best to show you like this type of vibrato. But if you really want to really learn this type of vibrato on every single hole, Google search Chris McCulloch and Google search Chris McCulloch vibrato. So this is the type of vibrato that, you know, I believe Howard Levy made famous. But Chris just had a sweetness about him. And many players, Jay Gaunt and some younger guys, Brandon Bailey and Konstantin Reinfeld, and all these other younger players sort of latched on to Chris's vibrato, which is just such a beautiful thing because, you know, he passed away years ago. And every time I hear Chris's little influence on the harmonica, which is such a big influence, actually, when you hear somebody's tone and vibrato sounding like somebody else, it's like they're there, right? And it's just beautiful that Chris has lived on through some of these younger cats. Now, I wish I could be one of the cats that Chris's vibrato lived on, but I've just never been very good at it. Okay, so let's talk about it though for a second. So it's a pitch vibrato for sure. So I'm bending a note and then unbending it, right? So that's how it works, okay? Now, like some people call it a jaw vibrato because they use their jaw. I'm one of them. So I'm like saying the word ya 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 while inhaling. Now, it doesn't sound as good there. I'm not really good at it on regular draw notes or blow notes. That's why I tell you to go watch Chris's video. However, I'm very good at it on bend notes. You can also use it on blow notes, blow bends really well. Now, somehow Chris was able to make a 6, 5, 4, 2 blows sound like that, right? Or sort of like it. I can't. But anyway, it's a yeah, 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 yeah. Now, I like this type of vibrato, this pitch vibrato, especially for when I'm like a little bit nervous about a bend note that I might be hitting. So say like, take for example the song Summertime in third position. It's important to be able to hit that note accurately. But sometimes it's hard. I might end up right, a little higher or a little lower. So sometimes it helps me to get a little confidence to put a little pitch vibrato on there until I can kind of cheat and find the note. And then, you know, everybody in the band claps because it sounds awesome, but really I'm cheating. But it sounds good too. So, you know, I kind of get an idea of where the pitch is. And I like to, and like I earlier, like the pat vibrato, I like to not cheat and nail the note first, then add the vibrato. So it's this yeah, 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 yeah. right? And that's the vibrato that I use a lot when I'm landing on a bend note and I want total control over it. And I don't want it to sound like this. That's like a nice vibrato, but it's very ba 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 ba. I want a little bit more tenderness where I can control it a little better. Now, obviously, you're gonna find your own, and your own may be like me, a big mixed up jumble of all of these things. And hey, man, that's what makes me me, you know. And your own will be yours, but practice them all. Breath, throat, in the pitch with the jaw vibrato. What you want is control, and you want to be able to turn it off, turn it on, add it later, not have it at all. You want to be able to do different people's styles if you can, so you can kind of, you know, put on some Will Wild, some Paul Butterfield, put on some big Walter Horton for when you're playing that style, or some Little Walter or whatever it is. You know, some of my favorite vibratos are, of course, Pat Ramsey, you know, and I'm going to throw in Lee Oscar. I just think he's the prettiest. He has a nice, really slow vibrato. Like I said earlier, it's often to tempo. P.T. Gazelle's got a really pretty one, too. He has to. He plays really sweet, beautiful music. And then Howard Levy. And then my favorite of all time is Chris McCulloch. So anyway, check out those guys. Have fun. Be patient. I remember, you know, one night, I remember just, you know, spending like 8 or 9 hours trying to get Paul Butterfield, and then like falling asleep in the bathroom, you know, where I was practicing with the reverb. I fell asleep in there, and I woke up in the morning and I was like, do I still have it? You know, and like I kind of did, or I don't know if I couldn't remember. Anyway, it can be very overwhelming, but don't rush it. It'll come. In the meantime, practice your steady breath vibrato. Anybody can start going and then speed it up. And then speed it up. Right? So you can start there. So no matter what, you can learn that vibrato. And then the other ones will come in time, especially as you get control of the heart. All right, go nuts, kids. Talk to you later.